Alright, the LX570. What has it been like to live with and use as an everyday vehicle? And really an all-purpose vehicle. I really try to use this for everything it was intended for. And there's a lot of things I use this for that I could not use other type of vehicles for. As far as something you're just going to drive every day, I don't really have many complaints. Everything is very well made in here. The cabin is very isolated. If you're just commuting in this, it's just extremely comfortable. It's a very nice place to be. The downside of that, as I'm sure if you've looked at these you'll already know, is going to be the gas mileage. I'm averaging around 14 miles per gallon. How I kind of justify that to myself is that this is known as being one of the most reliable vehicles out there, and you're kind of paying the price for that old school V8 6-speed auto combination. And for me, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. As far as usability of something like this, there's not a lot of other vehicles that really fit into that niche. What I do with this specifically, besides using it as a daily driver, I'll throw my dirt bike on the back. I have plans to tow my car to the track. When I have my dirt bike on the back, a lot of the times I'm driving on trails or really kind of rough gravel lots to get to the places I want to ride it. And this just does everything without a single complaint. A few weeks back, I crashed my bike and had to do a kind of a rescue mission with this out on some power line trails. And they're nothing like crazy. It's not like rock crawling, but in a two-wheel drive truck, I might have been concerned. But hopping in this, you're just never worried about, is it going to be able to do it? Because the answer most of the time is just going to be yes. And that's really the sense you get when you drive this. I think I'm going to name this video something like confidence and capability. And that's just the overwhelming sense that you get, is that you're not going to run into anything on your drive that this isn't going to just be able to handle with ease. If you're on a road trip and you have to drive through any kind of road work or construction, if you've driven a sports car through that with low profile tires, it's kind of scary. You feel like you're going to blow out a wheel sometimes. Something like this, you're just it's not even a thought in your head. You're going to run into potholes on your drives too. Some of them around Vegas are kind of big. There are times I was driving my Stinger that I was legitimately worried if I was going to blow out a wheel going over it. And in this, like, legitimately, you barely even notice it. I guess for anyone that doesn't know, LX570s share the same platform as a 200 series Land Cruiser. And if you know anything about those, they're some of the most robust vehicles ever made. It's kind of crazy the lengths that Toyota went to build those, because they have a full-size truck in the Tundra, but even then, they're not sharing components. They're not sharing tie rod ends, wheel bearings. Almost everything is specifically made for the Land Cruiser, and that carries over to this as well. The big difference between the Land Cruiser and the LX570 is in the suspension. The Land Cruiser has just a traditional coil spring suspension and has a KDSS system that can disconnect the sway bar during extreme off-roading where you need that wheel articulation. The LX doesn't get that. The hydraulic suspension is really useful, however, for just everyday driving. Some of the things it does is that when you go above 65 miles an hour, it automatically lowers it for better aerodynamics and gas mileage. I'm sure that makes a negligible difference, but it's kind of cool. For me personally, I like the fact that it can lower, because when I want to load my dirt bike and I'm off-road in like some rough parking lot, it just makes it easier. So being able to drop it way down really just helps me out. And for those times I want to go off-roading, being able to throw it in high, get that extra clearance. But even just cruising here, it's really windy out. You don't get a lot of wind noise in this. I'm getting some tire noise, but that's just because I put all-terrains on this, and that just kind of fit how I wanted to use the vehicle. But when I had the stock wheels and more on-road focused tires, you got nothing. Like, it was almost silent in here. And the few times I've taken this off-road, you really get the sense how well of everything is put together. Like, you'd be rocking back and forth, but you don't hear any creaks or any rattles in the interior. Everything is just so well put together. I'm trying to think of other negatives to say about this. I don't really just want to have this review just be me singing the praises the entire time. Besides gas mileage, this is a 2015, so it's kind of starting to show its age a bit as far as the direction that new cars are going. But I don't even necessarily see that as a negative. This is from a time when your top spec car wasn't just having all this technology and screens thrown at it, which I'm not sure I really like in newer vehicles. This just seems like something that's just going to last so much better. You can really tell their focus was just on using the best materials possible. And then with an engine and transmission, frame, everything that's just been proven over and over again underneath it. It's such a strange combination. I don't even know what you would compare this to. The closest competitor is another Lexus, which is the GX, which is extremely similar to this. To get outside of Toyota, I don't even know what you're looking at as far as a actually luxurious SUV that can actually do pretty extreme off-roading. You have a full-size Range Rover, but reliability-wise, not even the same thing as this. Maybe a G-Wagon as far as the luxury and off-road capability, but again, I don't know how you're going to trust either one of those like you could trust something like this. For the on-road performance of the LX, I think it's pretty acceptable for what this vehicle is. I think the quoted 0 to 60 is something like 6 seconds. For a 6,000 pound plus SUV, really is not that bad. It definitely doesn't feel slow off the line. It has a really short ratio first gear, so it kind of like launches itself. It doesn't have like the built-in delay like some newer cars have where you like get on the gas and there's a pause before anything happens. This is just very immediate. I think my 500 at Barth, the quoted 0 to 60 time was something like a little over 7 seconds. So this has never really felt too slow to me. Handling, of course, is a bit washy, but it honestly, with the hydraulic suspension, I think when you're braking, it kind of firms up the front, and it honestly corners decently flat, but there's no getting away from 6,000 pounds. Looking at my gas gauge, here's that one big negative. I couldn't even make this drive without getting gas, which, I don't know, I've come to accept. It just kind of is what it is. But I'll pick it back up in a few seconds here. All right, now off into some light off-roading. So I'm going to put the suspension in high, throw it in neutral quick, put it in 4 low, and lock the center diff. And putting it in 4 low unlocks all the different, traction control modes or drive modes: rock and dirt, mogul, loose rock, mud and sand. I think rock and dirt is accurate enough for what we're doing right now. So if you have one of these, it's pretty good practice to about once a month, maybe a couple times a month, cycle it through low range and lock and unlock the center diff a couple times. I've seen on the forums, if you don't, the actuators can get a bit unhappy and maybe get stuck a bit, maybe freeze up a little. But for the most part, if you actually use the systems, they are fairly reliable. You might hear some stuff moving around in the back. I've got a bunch of junk in here. Alright, now we're getting into some more kind of technical stuff. But honestly, driving this, that's really the point I want to get across, is you're just like never worried about what you're going to run into. Like, there is zero doubt in my mind this will go over anything I'm going to run into on this trail very easily. I know I could find a harder trail, but like, I'm never going rock crawling in this. That's just like not my lifestyle. But just knowing it can do all of this is just very impressive. The only thing I've done to this is wheels and tires. So it's on some 17-inch Rock Warrior TRD wheels. Those are 17s. And then it's about a 33-inch tire. They're 285/70 17s. So I think that might just be under 33 inches. But yeah, do that one mod and you can pretty much do whatever you want with this thing. I'm not saying like a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, whatever kind of truck couldn't do all of this, because I'm sure it could with a good driver, or maybe even an average driver, but definitely not as easily as something like this will do it. Like the full-time 4-wheel drive, you're never worried about traction. You can just crawl along. And this does have the crawl control as well, which I've not had a chance to test out, but some of the videos I've seen on it are pretty crazy. Like, there's guys that'll go out in sand and bury these up to the axles, and they'll try to get out and they'll just sit there and spin. Then they'll turn on the crawl control and it'll just figure it out. Like, it literally like raises itself out of being buried. I know it uses the ABS to do that and it doesn't really feel the best when it's doing it, but it works from what I've seen. And it seems like it's fairly reliable as well. This is a cool part of this trail. I don't really know the best way to attack this. I'm just going straight over it, I guess. Which is the beauty of this thing, is that it doesn't really matter. I don't think this thing would care any of the ways I could have taken that. That's one of those intangible things you get with owning something like this. It's just a complete confidence that everything's going to work. It's not going to break down on you. If you need to go and rescue a dirt bike off some rough trails, it'll do it. I know if you're hardcore into off-road, this doesn't really look like anything too interesting to you, but I am not. This is probably the most off-roading I will ever do with this, but for when I need to do it, if I need to do it, to get to a camp spot or something, zero worries. It's hard to put a price on that. Just peace of mind. A lot of things can get to places, but then if you're camping somewhere and it rains, well, that kind of changes things. I still would not doubt this for a second, though. This is going to be one of those vehicles that I just can't bring myself to sell. I see myself driving this to 300,000+ miles. I won't even feel bad paying for the maintenance on it. When you buy factory parts for these, the factory parts are so nice, you don't even mind shelling out the extra money to get the OEM parts. But yeah, look at this. Look how much this is bouncing around. You hear my stuff moving in the back, but zero creaks, zero rattles. Like, it's just seriously impressive. It's not even like this thing's new either. Has over 90,000 miles, and it's a 2015, and it still holds up. Like, I knew it was going to be good at this stuff, but it is just so easy. And I'm so comfortable the entire time doing this. I don't know. What else do you get that does something like this? That does everything this does and not pay, I don't know, 2 times, 3 times as much for a Range Rover or G-Wagon? I honestly could not tell you. This is just so competent. You can tell the years of refinement that went into this. So what haven't I talked about? I guess common problems. Not exclusive to this, but more exclusive to the 5.7 itself. They've been known to have some timing chain rattle issues. Some people go to all the effort of taking off the front cover of the engine and replacing it for an updated part number, which has a bit of a bigger bore that lets more oil through before it's fully up to temp. Thank you, Mr. Side-by-Side. Then again, other people have just like sent it basically and haven't had issues with it since. The hydraulic suspension, as far as I've seen, has been very reliable for the majority of people. One of the things to watch out for is just rust, because those are just hydraulic lines, hard lines. So if you're looking at one that has rust, make sure you take a look at those lines, and some of them are buried up underneath skid plates and bash plates on the sides especially. But that's going to be no different than your hard brake line either. If it's rusty with those, you're going to have issues with the suspension as well. But as far as major issues, there's coolant leaks in the valley plates on these. Again, not a huge issue. A bit expensive to replace, but that's not something that's going to like strand you or cost tens of thousands of dollars. I think Mr. GX up here is waiting for me, so I appreciate that. This trail's pretty good about having lots of pull-offs so you're not getting stuck with opposing traffic. Always crazy to see another Lexus out here though. Definitely not its normal environment, but these things do it. I know this probably doesn't look crazy on camera, but this is a good drop. Let me park here for a second and take a look. Look at the wheels too. Yep, that's the only mod I've done to this. It's just wheels and tires. I think those rims are so fitting for this vehicle. And the chrome kind of ties together with all the chrome on it too. And these do sound good too. I'm so sad the new ones are going to twin turbo V6s. It's just not the same. Okay. All right. So if I was looking to spec one of these again, things I would look out for is definitely the Mark Levinson sound system. I think that is 100% worth it. I don't think that option originally was that expensive either. That, the cool box, definitely wouldn't want to go without that. I wish I could be riding my bike out here right now. Just had to go and break my thumb. Yeah, I don't know who the target demographic for my channel necessarily is. I'm kind of just posting stuff all over the place, but it's going to be at least 4 more weeks from today before I can even like think about riding again. Kind of sad, but you know, it happens. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot better too, I guess, but It is what it is. What was I saying? Yeah, so Martin Logan sound system. Definitely keep an eye out for that. Cool box. 100% worth. Rear seat entertainment. Yeah, you can definitely go without, but from what I've seen, the majority of these are pretty fully loaded from the factory. You rarely see these without the cool box, without the Martin Logan sound system. The majority of people that were buying these or ordering these were buying them fully loaded. Outside of that, keep an eye out for normal maintenance stuff you would look for. There's not a ton of things specific to the LX that you really need to pay attention for. On the plus side, a lot of these have really good service histories from what I've seen. A lot of the original owners were just taking them to Lexus on the recommended schedule pretty religiously, which is always nice. Now here's the true party trick of one of these. You get to the end of your trail, take it out of 4 low, unlock the center diff. The height will drop down back to neutral once you get above 17 miles an hour. And just like that, you're back into a luxury vehicle. Yeah, I can really never sell this because what am I going to replace it with? There's nothing else I can buy that's even like close to what this is and what this does. But that's fine with me because I have no problem holding on to it and servicing it as long as it'll let me, basically. It's just one of those cars where I'm not huge on the new generation, so I'm just going to have to keep it. Another huge point for the LX. I've done a fair amount of very long distance road trips in my life. The norm I can get is about 8 hours until I'm either struggling, just wanting to get out of the car, I'm having back issues just from being uncomfortable, having a strange seating position. I get none of that in this for whatever reason. I'm sure down to the sound deadening, that helps you not get fatigued. The seating position in this just works for me. But I've had 14-hour days in this where I've driven, gone to a hotel, and then wanted to go out to eat, and I don't hate the idea of getting back into this to drive to a restaurant. And this is the only vehicle I've owned where I felt like that. I didn't really touch too much on the interior quality, but materials alone, it's a step above anything else I've experienced so far. I've been in cars with so-called Napa leather, but those have felt like hard and stiff and just not supple at all, not compared to this. The leather in here feels like a worn-in baseball glove. It's just like so soft and so plush. All the controls, the buttons, I don't know, like they're plastic, but they don't have like good tactile feedback like you get in like some Audis, but I don't know, it's alright. I leave that on auto, I never really touch it anyways. This is just such a do-everything vehicle. If you can stomach the price to buy one, stomach the gas mileage, I don't see how you go wrong with one of these. Like, this will fit whatever lifestyle you have. You want to tow a boat, you have a big family, you need the third row. I don't, but it comes in handy for when family's in town visiting. There's plenty of room in the back for the dog. The tailgate makes that easy too. The split tailgate is huge, honestly. The amount of times I've sat on that, put the dog ramp on it. It's just a very nice design. But yeah, unless my needs change drastically in the future, I can't see myself ever getting rid of this. There are times it'd be nice to have a truck bed, but I don't think the trade-off is worth it. I know modern trucks are basically like luxury cars in and of themselves now, but Any of the trucks I've been in haven't driven anywhere near as nice as this. This doesn't drive like a body-on-frame type vehicle. I don't know if that's down to not having leaf springs like trucks do. This just has a coil spring in the rear, but it still has a solid rear axle. I don't know, for whatever reason, like driving here right now, it does not feel like a big body-on-frame truck. It just drives and rides so nicely.